People of the internet, we bring you Surah 9.
Yeah, Surah 9. It is the surah that we have, or one of the surahs we have not read yet. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome in. And I have been posting on TikTok more, so we'll see if we can get some more people in here.
The heckin' Zoomerinos are going to be coming in from their TikToks.
Yeah, that was very Zoomer of you. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, Chris, if you look at the cameras, that are individual cameras, I think
Skibbity Riz.
I forgot to I forgot to refocus the camera. I had to move it when I was doing the video, the Ten Commandments video here.
Everything back.
Does it look okay?
Which one?
My camera, this one right here.
How do you want it?
Okay, no, I was just saying I think I forgot that it might be a little bit off. Okay, whatever, it's fine.
Look,
Lawrence will
if it's
figure
working,
it
it's
out.
Fine. Oh yeah, I guess it is. I guess it's okay. All right. I thought it might be a little off kilter. All right.
It's all right.
I thought nothing of it, so I didn't even say anything.
Okay. I guess that's just me being paranoid.
Look,
Anyways,
people, we have a number of books. We have the Quran from the Quran Project and the Study Quran and the Penguin Classics Quran and a thematic commentary on the Quran.
We also have Qurans from Abdullah Yusuf Ali, Muhammad Ali. Yeah, I forget how to pronounce that name. It's been a while. Maulana. Yeah,
Maulana Muhammad Ali.
Yep. And we have the Quran and the Bible from Gabriel Syed Reynolds.
Yes.
And now you were away for quite a bit, which is why we weren't doing the show. I hear you were building nuclear facilities?
Yes, clearly that's what I do in my free time.
Right. Okay. How was it?
Well,
Jesus Christ.
it's somewhat difficult at first to deal with the radiation, but once you get used to it,
you don't.
All right. Okay. That's good to know. Well, I look forward to your power grid. Anyways.
Yes. Anyways, we're getting into Surah 9.
And it does have a couple names.
Yes. Al-Tawbah.
Yeah, but it also goes by Bara'at or Bara'ut. Yeah. So it either one name means repentance and the other one means immunity.
Now, let me tell you something about Surah 9, Lawrence. This is the only surah of the Quran to which, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, is not prefixed. The commentators have given different reasons for this. The correct one that which was been given by Imam Razi, namely, this is because the Prophet himself did not dictate it at the beginning of the surah. Therefore, the companions did not prefix it, and their successors followed them. This is a further proof of the fact that utmost care has been taken to keep the Quran intact so that it should remain in its complete and original form.
This is actually interesting on what you just said.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how it's called Bismillah? Bismillah? I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's the name of the phrase that isn't attached at the beginning. Mm-hmm. That's attached to all the other ones. Mm-hmm. So it's unique for that. But it was among the last of the surahs revealed, and though the apostle had directed that it should follow Surah 8, it was not clear whether it was supposed to form a separate surah or only a part of Surah 8. It is now treated as a separate surah, but the Bismillah, I don't know, sorry about the pronunciation, is not prefixed to it, as there is no warrant for supposing that the apostle used it before it in his recitation of the Quran. So it seems like, it might actually be the case that if these were initially separate, that would explain why there wasn't one at the beginning, because it would have been chapter 8's.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is very strange that it does not include that opening verse.
Yeah, it is strange. Let's see. The name of this surah, Al-Tawbah, comes from the reference to repentance in verse 3, though some connect it with God's relenting towards the prophet and believers as mentioned in verses 117 through 118. Since repent and relent render the same verb with a different preposition following it. Another common name for this surah is al-bara'ah, the repudiation, a word that appears in this first verse, and several other names are also mentioned by commentators. This Medinan surah contains some of the most important passages in the Quran concerning the conduct of war and political relations during peacetime, opening with a passage about how and why believers should fight the idolatrous Arabs and also certain groups among the people of the book. A long passage describes the trials and disagreements that took place within the community over setting out a military campaign. We'll get into all of the details, but yes, this is the only surah that does not begin with the basmala, the formula in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. It is reported that Ibn Abbas asked Ali ibn Abi Talib why there was no basmala at the start of the surah. He responded that the basmala is a statement of security, and this surah begins with the severing of a covenant and a declaration of conflict, which indicate the opposite of a state of security. When it was pointed out to him that the Prophet sent letters beginning with the basmala to call various hostile groups to embrace Islam, Ali ibn Abi Talib responded that this was precisely a call to God, not the rescinding of a pact. The former leads to peace, the latter to war. Commentators note that it was a custom, even in pre-Islamic times, to omit in the name of God in a message breaking a treaty.
Yeah.
Other interpretations of the absence at the start as that it reinforces a connection between the final verse of the previous surah, which emphasizes the need to separate from disbelievers, a message given in a different form at the start of this surah. One question that the absence has raised for some is whether Surah 8 and Surah 9 are two surahs or together make up a single surah, and it's recorded that there is disagreement among some of the companions over this question.
Interesting, yeah.
According to an account attributed to Umar ibn al-Khattab, throughout the period of revelation, the Prophet would give specific instructions on the placement of surahs and verses. Al-Tawbah was one of the last surahs to be revealed, and because of its content, some companions believed that it belonged with the preceding surah. However, because they were unsure whether it was one surah or two, they placed them next to each other, but without the basmala at the start of Al-Tawbah. In this way, some interpret the absence of the basmala as preserving the difference of opinion between the companions over the question of the arrangement of the surahs. Nevertheless, the traditional view accepted by consensus is that it was the Prophet himself who gave the order for the surahs in the Quran, including considering surahs 8 and 9 separate surahs.
It's because it says in this commentary, didn't it say that he wanted them to be the same? Didn't he say that?
I think so, but I guess
I had directed that it should follow. Oh, okay. He just said that it should follow Surah 8. It was not clear whether it was supposed to form a separate surah. Okay. But I think that the fact that it is missing that very first verse that we see everywhere, that being in the name of God, the all beneficent, the all merciful, I think the fact that that's missing kind of shows that it should have been part of the surah. And I also think that it is true that the stuff that we had just covered kind of continues here in a different form.
See, I don't think so, because once we get into it, and we will get into it shortly, it has a different opening piece, much like many of the epistles.
Okay, sure.
It is directly addressed to someone. So we may take this to be like
Oh,
a
like
letter of some sort.
right, like a different form of literature almost.
Yeah,
okay.
a totally different form of literature. Or it may be the case that thematically, compassion and mercy don't fit with this. It's possible, though, that this was part of the previous surah.
And I think that you kind of hit on it already, but the main purpose of this is that the idolaters that they had been living around apparently had not been properly following their treaties, their agreements. So they are, let's see here. Yeah, the frequent violation ultimately led to the declaration of immunity because it was impossible that the Muslims should be bound forever by the terms of those agreements, while their enemies could repudiate them with impunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there's a detailed historical background on this surah in the Quran Project, which I'm going to go over some of it, but it's a lot, so I'm not going to go over all of it.
Right, yeah.
The series of events that have been discussed in this surah took place after the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah. By that time, 1/3 of Arabia had come under the sway of Islam, which had established itself as a powerful, well-organized, and civilized Islamic state. There were two important events that followed. The first was the conquest of Arabia. The Prophet was able to send missions among different clans for the propagation of Islam. The result was that during the short period of 2 years, it became such a great power that it made the old order of ignorance feel helpless before it. So much so that the zealous elements from among the Quraysh were so exasperated that they broke the treaty in order to encounter Islam in decisive combat. But the Prophet took prompt action after the breach so as not to allow them any opportunity to gather enough force for this. He made a sudden invasion on Mecca in the month of Ramadan in 8 AH after the Hijrah and conquered it. Though this conquest broke the backbone of the order of ignorance, it made still another attack on Islam in the battlefield of Hunayn, which proved to be its death knell.
Oh,
the clans.
Sorry, before you continue, maybe it might be helpful to know that at least according this. Okay, this is according to Muhammad Ali here, and this is the most apologetic commentary we have on this table. He says that the whole of this chapter was revealed in the 9th year of the Hijrah, the opening verses belonging to the close, and the major portion to about the middle of that year. So it was written in sections.
So there's disagreement between Maulana Muhammad Ali
yeah.
and the Quran Project on when this is written, because this is 8 after the Hijrah, so they say 9.
Yeah. So I either way.
Yeah,
but
it's potentially earlier or later. So there's more details. There's this Battle of Hunayn,
right, which we will get to today.
The clans of Hawazin, Thaqif, Narjushm, and others gathered their entire forces in the battlefield in order to crush the reformative revolution that they utterly failed. The defeat of ignorance at Hunayn paved the way for the making of the whole of Arabia the abode of Islam. The result was that hardly a year passed after the Battle of Hunayn when a major portion of Arabia came within the folds of Islam, and only a few upholders of the old order remained scattered over some corners of the country. The second event that contributed towards making Islam a formidable power was the campaign of Tabuk, which was necessitated by the provocative activities of the Christians living within or near the boundaries of the Roman Empire to the north of Arabia. Accordingly, the Prophet, with an army of 30,000, marched boldly toward the Roman Empire. But the Romans evaded the encounter. The result was that the power of the Prophet in Islam increased manifold, and deputations from all corners of Arabia began to wait upon him on his return from Tabuk in order to offer their allegiance to Islam and obedience to him. Then there's a long passage on the campaign to Tabuk, but then at the end here, there's some important things that I need to bring up. If we keep in view the preceding background, we can easily find out the problems that were confronting the community at this time. They were, 1, to make the whole of Arabia a perfect abode of Islam. 2, to extend the influence of Islam to the adjoining countries. 3, to crush the mischief of hypocrites. And 4, to prepare the Muslims for jihad against the non-Muslim world. So it seems as if, in summary, this is basically a surah that's going to encourage expansionist,
and it's
imperialism, basically.
We'll see how we feel when we read it. But according again to Maulana Muhammad Ali, that they broke this agreement, right? Because obviously the other side was breaking their half of the agreement. But it does say here that it makes a clear exception in favor of those who did not fail in their agreement.
Mm-hmm. Now,
so we'll see how we feel about that.
Yes. We're going to be reading 1 through 32, which will put us slightly beyond the first section pointed out by the study Quran.
Fair enough. I should start because whenever I do look these up, they're never sectioned off the way that they are in these Qurans.
Right.
So I'm never 100% sure. I just kind of do it thematically. So we'll see where it goes. However,
you know what? At least for this first verse, I want to read from the Quran Project.
You can, but I did want to address a couple things in the chat. Firstly, My Unfinished Journey asks how you spell your name, and it's neither of those.
Good.
It's close, though. It is close.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's with an I-N.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't understand
there's
the poll...
no E.
Right, also no E, yeah. Also, if you don't understand the poll, sucks for you. I think the poll is pretty clear. Chris, could you expand the poll? I don't see the whole thing.
Okay.
Oh, it just has the option to end the poll.
There we
Okay.
go.
Oh, there it is. Oh, yes, of course. I get it. What is there not to understand about this poll? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
This makes perfect sense.
Actually, it has to do with the current really big bill in government. See, if you read the bill, you'll understand that they divide by 0. But which one? Which one did they choose?
Yeah, you got to read the big, beautiful bill in order to understand this one.
Yep. They do, in fact, use division by 0. They really, really shouldn't.
Thank you. All right. Anyways, that's the poll. And how about we start with that reading?
All right. Without further ado, people, share the stream far and wide.
Do that.
Bring in all of the people that you know. Everyone. Every single person. Don't be shy. And
we would appreciate every single person. So.
Yes, every single person.
8 billion views.
Potentially 9 or 10 even.
10.
Good
I
God.
haven't seen the numbers that high.
There's a lot of theoretical people that we have not contacted.
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay.
Anyways, this is a declaration of dissociation from God and his messenger to those with whom you had made a treaty among the polytheists. So right off the bat, this is, instead of getting that in the name of God, most merciful.
Right. Yeah.
It's saying this is a declaration of dissociation.
Yeah, this is like the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, this is much like the Declaration of Independence. It's literally a Declaration of Independence.
Right, yeah.
Now, there's going to be commentary that I have at the end of verse 4, but I'm going to continue reading in the study Quran. I just liked the first verse there.
Yeah.
So travel freely throughout the land for 4 months and know that you cannot thwart God and that God shall disgrace the believers. And an announcement from God and his messenger to the people on the day of the greater Hajj, that God and his messenger have repudiated the idolaters. So if you repent, it would be better for you. And if you turn away, then know that you cannot thwart God and give the disbelievers glad tidings of a painful punishment, save for those idolaters with whom you have made a treaty, and who thereafter commit no breach against you, nor support anyone against you. So fulfill the treaty with them for its duration. Truly, God loves the reverent. Okay, those are the first 4 verses. What do you got for me?
Right, yeah. So there is wait, that was 4? I thought that was just 3. Oh, no, it was 4. It was 4. You're right. Okay. It looked a little off here. All right. So, on the 4 months, some commentators understand by this the 4 forbidden months in which warfare by ancient Arabian custom was unlawful. There'd be Rahab. Well, yeah, I would think that's the same one as on the Jewish calendar. Rahab, Zulqad, Zulhaj, and Muharram. We covered something like this in Surah 2, right? There was a certain period of time that I don't know if it was they couldn't do something. So I don't know if you want to flip back to Surah 2, verse 194 for a second. So while you do that, but it is better to take the signification of the 4 months immediately following the declaration, assuming that the surah was promulgated early in Shawwal.
Oh, this is about Ramadan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the sacred month for the sacred month.
Yeah, okay,
Retribution for forbidden
Oh, yeah,
things.
and then they had multiple.
Um,
I remember them having the sacred months, right? Obviously, like the one that's the big one is Ramadan, but I think they had more, didn't they?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean this one specifically does note that, so I think that they do. But either way,
refers to the fact that although according to the terms brokered at Hudaybiyah, the Muslims had to turn back, they were able to return the following year to perform the lesser pilgrimage in the month of Dhul Qa'dah. So the sacred month for the sacred month.
So it does seem like there is that the biggest disagreement about these is if they're referring to the sacred months on their calendar or just the months directly after this declaration. However, let's see what else. The day of the Hajj, right? I know that now the Hajj or the pilgrimage is you can go on like one big one. You should at least do it once if you are physically capable of doing it. If you're not, for whatever reason, you don't have to do it. But you take this one pilgrimage, and you only have to do it once in your life, I think. But obviously, you can do it more. There are,
badges,
Umrah.
like
I think
Girl
it's
Scout
I think it's a Umrah, where that's basically the Hajj you can take at any time.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
there's a
think.
greater
And then there's
a lesser Hajj.
Right, yeah.
See, different badges you can get.
Different badges, okay.
Look, there's a bit of commentary here on these verses, so I'm going to get into it for my stuff. First verse of this surah is an announcement of the annulment of a treaty between the prophet and idolaters. Here, it means that the existing truce or treaty has come to an end. And Ibn Kathir says about this, considerable disagreements were occurring. In one account, this verse is said to refer to the breaking of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, a treaty contracted between the Prophet and the Quraysh that established a 10-year truce. This treaty not only included the Prophet and the Quraysh, but also their respective allies, among whom were the tribes of Banu Khuza'a.
Peter is here. Disgusting.
And stemming from a vendetta that pre-existed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And it was reported that the Quraysh assisted the Banu Bakr with arms and a small number of men. The Prophet considered this act to be a breach of the treaty, thereby nullifying the need to observe the truce. This ultimately led to the final conquest of Mecca by the Prophet and his followers. According to this account, the repudiation of the treaty is addressed to the Meccans. According to the majority of commentators, however, this verse was revealed after the conquest of Mecca, a year after the breach of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. There's considerable difference of opinion as to which idolaters are addressed in the legal import of the repudiation and the announcement. One opinion is that if some idolaters had an existing treaty with the Prophet, a treaty whose term had more than 4 months remaining, it was reduced to 4 months. And if they had one that was to expire before 4 months, it would be extended to a period of 4 months. Others add to this latter group those with whom the prophet had made no treaty, so that they would be automatically granted a 4-month truce. Yet others interpreted this 4-month period to apply only to those idolaters who had less than a 4-month treaty or none at all, but would not reduce an already existing treaty that was being faithfully observed, and others believed that this directive applied only to those who had no pre-existing treaty at all, and that anyone else with a treaty in hand would be dealt with according to that treaty. So there are disagreements also among commentators as to the precise timing of the 4 months. If the announcement of verse 3 is made on the day of the Greater Hajj, interpreted to be either the day of sacrifice or the day of Arafah, it would leave 50 days until the ending of sacred months. That is, the remainder of the pilgrimage month of Dhul Hijjah, the 12th month of the calendar, followed by the entire month of Muharram. One view understands this passage to mean that verse 3 addresses the idolaters with whom the prophet and his followers had no existing treaty, while the group with whom they did have a treaty was given 4 months. According to another view, this repudiation and announcement were made to both groups at the same time, so that the treaty-holding idolaters had 4 months until the middle of Rabi al-Thani, which comes 4 months after Dhul Hijjah, while the non-treaty group had until the end of the sacred months, 50 days from the end of the announcement, as mentioned above. According to still other opinions, the surah was revealed at the start of Shawwal, the 10th month of the calendar, thus making the end of the 4-month period mentioned in verse 2 coincide with the end of the sacred months, as described in verse 5.
Oh, okay. Just making that one line up on, because that's a little funny. There is a note here that only 2 tribes, the Bani Damra and the Bani Kanaa, are related to have adhered to their treaties.
Okay.
Yeah. So not everyone, right? But apparently, to the polytheists with whom you had made a... Well, this one... Okay, so this it does in the English seem like it applies to all of them, but I think that as we go through, my guess is that we'll see that the certain ways in which they broke those treaties, I guess. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay. Let's continue with verse 5. Then, when the sacred months have passed, slay the idolaters wheresoever you find them, capture them, besiege them, and lie in wait for them at every place of ambush. But if they repent and perform the prayer and give the alms, then let them go on their way. Truly, God is forgiving, merciful.
That's really funny to say after saying that. But yes.
This is exactly what they tell you not to do in wisdom literature in the Bible.
It's the exact opposite. Yeah.
Whoops.
So obviously if we are taking what's the word? If I'm going to take the principle of charity here, then
I don't know about the translation of polytheist or idolater here.
I have no idea.
Unfortunately, neither of us understand Arabic well enough.
I tried learning Arabic, but it's
on the page.
Right, yeah, there is Arabic on the page. It doesn't really help us all that much.
Whoops.
Well, it does say, okay, so like in verse 4, for example, and in verse 5, it uses pagans.
My unfinished journey with the 222. Hail Lawrence Rubin and adhering to the treaties. Yes, and if you want to adhere to all of the treaties that we have in place, then you will make like my unfinished journey and send us money.
Great. Very good.
Wow.
Yeah. Apparently the way that it's translated is so in verse 5, it does look like it might be the same word because in this one, well, actually it might, hold on, I'm still looking over. What was the question? It was about polytheist and idolater. Okay. So one translation. Let's actually look at.
See, it says polytheists in the Quran Project, but it says idolaters in the Study Quran.
Yeah,
so
this one says idolaters. This one says idolaters. This says polytheists. This one says pagans. So it seems like it's probably the same. It means
one who commits shirk. Okay.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Right. Yeah. That's actually very helpful. So I think that. Yeah, so it would all be the same one. Yeah. Either way, I think that if I am taking the principle of charity here, then taking it in its historical context would be like the specific people that wronged you, who are not Muslim, that made this treaty with you, are to be killed after this period of time.
I think this has to be a reference to a specific historical event.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, this can't just be a general command.
As someone who is, I think that the fact that it begins with that Declaration of Independence, then I think that it necessarily needs to be taken in that historical context. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thoughts on the Kaaba? Do you think it's connected to Abraham?
I think Abraham didn't exist.
So, yeah, there's no Abraham.
Right.
There's no evidence of an Abraham.
Right, yeah.
So there's no evidence that there's an association between the Kaaba and Abraham.
Yeah. So when it comes to like Abraham, well, not much work has been done on the historicity of the patriarchs in quite a long time. There are two critical books that you need to read for it. There is one by I think Thomas L. Thompson, called The Historicity of the Patriarchs. That one is pretty technical and takes things from an archaeological perspective. And then there is Abraham in History and Tradition from John Van Setters that takes it from a more literary critical perspective.
Now, there is a purported tomb in Israel.
Of course there is.
Which supposedly has the remains of Abraham and Sarah. But I don't think anyone's ever confirmed that there's even remains underneath.
The most we can tell from the narratives that have been passed down is that they are constructed in like the post-exilic period. Mm-hmm. That is what we can tell. I think Van Setters shows that pretty.
Certainly would be long handily after if there was a historical Abraham.
Right,
You're looking at someone who is probably at least 800 BC.
A very long. Yeah, we're looking at a very long time off.
Very long time back. Let's continue on. And if any of the idolaters seek asylum with thee, grant him asylum until he hears the word of God. Then convey to him his place of safety. That's because there are people who know not.
Wait, hold on. So you should protect him and then show him to a place of safety once he hears the word of God? Am I not understanding something?
Yeah, so it's like when you have homeless people and you're like, hey, we'll give you food, but then you require them to listen to some sermon from some preacher.
Oh, right. Okay, gotcha. Then, yeah, okay. So I think this makes a bit more sense once I look at the emphasis, I should say, in Gabriel Said Reynolds, because he italicizes the word convey. Mm-hmm. So he conveys him to his place of safety. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess that makes sense once fair enough.
Yeah.
You're right, that is the same thing that those preachers do.
You're allowed to help them not die, but you are required to show them.
Yeah, so the word here is ma'aman, place or opportunity of being secure from all harm. So that's like a total place of safety. Yeah. Has a bit more of an oomph to it, more of finality.
How can the idolaters have a treaty with God and with his messengers, save for those with whom you made a treaty at the sacred mosque? If they should remain true to you, remain true to them. Truly, God loves the reverent. How? Since if they prevail over you, they will not observe any kinship or treaty with you. They please you with their mouths while their hearts refuse. And most of them are iniquitous. I just love that it says they please you with their mouths.
Right, that is a very funny way of putting it.
Yeah, that clearly they're saying that these people are being disingenuous.
Right, yeah.
Good words.
This is something that pops up in the Bible, in the ancient world altogether, where people are like, he's just like talking fancy, or he's bullshitting you, he's snowing you, something like that.
Smooth talkers.
Yeah, smooth talkers.
How? They have sold the signs of God for a paltry price and have turned from his way. Evil indeed is that which they used to do, observing neither kinship nor treaty with any believer. And it's they who are the transgressors. But if they repent and perform the prayer and give the alms, then they are your brethren in religion, and we expound the signs for a people who know. But if they renege on their oaths after having made their treaty and vilify your religion, then fight the leaders of disbelief. Truly, they have no oaths that they might desist.
Yeah, there were a few things here. I think we can pick some stuff out.
Yeah.
We're starting at verse 6. It looks like. So he's talking. Sorry, not verse 6. Verse 7. Right, the actual reasons. So let's see. As long as the idolaters were true to their agreements, the Muslims were required to be true to them. Just as in the case of war, the Muslims were not allowed to fight until the enemy had first attacked. And then, you already went through verse 10, I think, right?
Yeah. Now, according to some, those with whom you made a treaty in verse 7 refers to certain members of the Banu Bakr who never violated a treaty with the Prophet, even while others did. Other commentators believe that this verse refers to the Banu Khuza'ah, who were allied with the Prophet, or even to the Quraysh. Al-Tabari believes this verse could only refer to the members of Banu Bakr who did not violate the Treaty of Hudaybiyah.
Verse 9 is probably the most interesting one to me, that they have taken a small price for the messages of Allah.
Yeah, the sale of God's signs for a paltry price is an object of rebuke in several verses of the Quran, as in 2:174, 3:187, 16:95. In other places, the language of buying and selling is used in a positive manner, as when God asks believers, "Who's that will lend God a goodly loan? He will multiply it for him, and he shall have a generous reward." It recalls, at least if you have a biblical background, the Esau narrative and the Edomites thereby.
Also, just wanted to address a comment here from Beyond. We do have commentaries. Actually, all of our translations are commentaries. So I don't know what you're talking about.
This one only has limited commentary, but at least has introductions.
Sure, yeah.
This one doesn't have commentary, and it's not open.
Yeah, that one is going to be like, I think we've only used that one once so far.
Yeah, we've used this a couple of times just to reference like word choices.
Right, yeah.
And that's the purpose it serves.
Yeah.
It's a very flowery translation.
And I never really liked when translations do that, of anything.
And it's also not in order. Oh.
Well, yeah, that too. It uses a different order.
Yeah.
That one uses the order of Revelation.
Yeah, which makes it much more difficult.
At least with the commentaries. And I did want to point out, so if so there's an accusation here, right?
Yeah.
About them taking they have or I should probably read from Gabriel Said Reynolds, because it's just easier to understand his. They have sold the signs of God for a paltry gain and have barred the people from his way. Now remember, that was one of the big things in the earlier surahs, that this could be interpreted in two ways, right? That there are people going to worship that are being stopped from going to worship, and that was one of the big problems in the earlier surahs. And the other interpretation is that they are somehow almost like conning people using Islam. That's another possibility or another interpretation I can get out of this. Like, because if they're selling them out for a paltry gain, right? It's like they're trying to make some money off of the word of God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense. And then when they borrow from his way, that would be like, well, it's just like a con artist trying to you're selling snake oil, basically.
Yeah, something like
I don't know if that interpretation makes sense. Unfortunately, we don't have more notes on that specific verse, but I feel like there is one of the accusations lying right in there.
Yeah, there's also something interesting here. Some say that the leaders of disbelief are mentioned specifically because they're decisive in generating hostility against believers, though Al-Razi believes that it implies that one should fight all disbelievers. In Quranic accounts, it's often the notables or leading members of a group that voice and drive the people's rejection of their prophet. Others say that it refers to those who led the way in violating the treaty and opening hostilities, although it can be seen as referring to specific people as Abu Jahl, one of the central leaders of the Meccans who were against the prophet, is thought to apply universally to all such treaty violators. So I'm going to continue on a little bit, and I'll hand it off to you shortly. Will you not fight a people who broke their oaths and intended to expel the messenger and opened hostility against you first?
See, there's like the rest of the accusation. Tried to exile him, I guess.
Right. Do you fear them? For God is worthier of being feared by you if you are believers.
Okay, yeah, making the same argument that they made before.
Fight them, and God will punish them by means of your hand and disgrace them, and he will grant you victory over them and heal the breasts of a believing people and will dispel the rage within their hearts. God relents unto whomsoever he will, and God is knowing. Wise.
Is that how he's gonna do? He's gonna dispel the rage in their hearts? That's not the interpretation I'm getting from that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or did you suppose that you would be left alone while God had yet to know who among you strove and took no friend apart from God, his messenger, and the believers? God is aware of whatsoever you do.
It's a pretty classic way to end off a section.
Yes, yeah. It is. And I'm going to hand it off to you there. I'm going to hop to the restroom for a second. Hold on. Jesus message, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, we used to have that.
I need to hire Muhammad impersonator.
Oh, Jesus. I'm not sure how well that one would go. I think I think it'd be pretty funny if we got the Jesus guy to, or like the Fiverr Jesus to make another little ad spot for us again. Except this time he'd be talking about us reading the Quran instead of the Bible. I think that'd be pretty funny. Either way, I'm going to continue on with verse 17, it looks like, and I will be going from Gabriel Said Reynolds' translation. These other ones, they're kind of hit or miss on how understandable they are to me. So I'm going with this one. It might be a little Americanized, I don't know, but it seems like it's just easier for me to read this one. So I'm going with it. So verse 17, the section is called Idolater's Service of the Sacred House. I'm guessing that would be the Kaaba. Oh, well, maybe. I don't know. The idolater's service for it, though. So starting with verse 17. The polytheists may not maintain God's mosques while they are witness to their own unfaith. Their works have failed, and they shall remain in the fire forever. Only those shall maintain only those shall maintain God's mosques who believe in God and the last day and maintain the prayer and give the zakat and fear no one except God. They hopefully will be among the guided. So from these people that are allowed to, this would be Muslims. Muslims are allowed to take care of the mosques, which makes perfect sense to me, right? And I'm not sure if this actually points to something that would have been happening at the time. I think it probably does, right? Because if you have a lot of polytheists are generally very accepting of other faiths and other religious groups. And often they'll even be syncretic. So they will take their own religious ideas, their own thoughts about the gods, and apply them to the religious beliefs of others. So sometimes they will just identify their gods with the gods of, the people of wherever it is that they are. And this especially happened a lot with Alexander the Great. As he was going through basically all of Asia, he would just say, "Oh, that regional deity you have here is just like my god," and then he lists a Hellenistic one. So I think that if we're talking about a whole bunch of polytheists who would even have the potential to work in a sacred space that is not of their god specifically, they would have seen really no issue with that, because pantheons like that were just flexible. But in this one, it's very specifically hardline monotheist. The people who are allowed to take care of this stuff are not just the Muslims, but the people who are very good Muslims, because it even mentions giving zakat. I'm not sure if that counts as very good Muslims, but maybe better than like your I don't know if you want to say average, everyday, maybe someone who doesn't really take it that seriously. I don't know, but it wouldn't be just like some rando. It would be someone who takes it a bit more seriously than the randos. And I need to turn the page here for the commentary.
What did I miss?
Let's see. It looks like the polytheists can't work in mosques.
What verse are you on?
I just read 18.
Okay.
So yeah. And I'm currently looking at some.
Why don't you read
commentary
through verse 20? Because I have commentary on verses 17 through 20.
Okay, sure.
But I do have a little bit of commentary back in verse 16, when it says, took no friend apart from God, his messenger, and the believers. Friend renders the word walija, a word that conveys the sense of being a confidant.
Wait, can you show me that?
Here in verse 16.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I know a guy
literally
named
means like, did you suppose you would be left alone while God had yet to know who among you strove and took no friend apart from God? So, like, here it literally is saying, like, it's encouraging you to take no friend apart from God, his messenger, and the believers. And by friend, it means confidant, intimate, like
a close
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably in the same way that some people in the Bible are called friends, friends of God.
Yeah, I wonder what the implication is, because we've had several verses in the past which have encouraged in different situations not being allies with non-believers, not preferring trade and allegiance and stuff with non-believers over believers. Here, it seems to literally be suggesting that you shouldn't be friends with them. So I wonder if this is just a particular that applies to whoever is
breaking the
treaty.
Yeah, maybe. Because we have had plenty of there were some verses early on that even said that you can be friends with these people.
Yeah.
But like there was one verse that said like, oh well, you can't be friends with them over like a Muslim friend. Like if you needed to have the choice between a non-believer as a friend and a Muslim as a friend, and only the choice, like you couldn't have both, then you would go with the Muslim. But there was nothing in here so far that's been against, Muslims being friends with unbelievers.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll have more commentary when we get to the end of verse 20.
Okay, sure. Sounds good. All right, so I'll go from 19. Yeah. Do you regard the providing of water to Hajj pilgrims and the maintenance of the holy mosque as similar in worth to someone who has faith in God and believes in the last day and wages jihad in the way of God? They are not equal with God, and God does not guide the wrongdoing lot.
They're not equal in the sight of God.
Well, sure, yeah. Those who have believed and migrated and waged jihad in the way of God with their possessions and persons have a greater rank near God, and that is, and it is they who are the triumphant.
So here, I have commentary, but it almost seems to suggest that literal colonizers are like God's preferred people, right? Those people who emigrate, strive in the cause of God with their wealth and their lives. They're greater in rank in the sight of God, which seems to be like people who are going out into different parts of the world. And in the introductions that we read, there seemed to be a suggestion that there would be some imperialism being defended here. So I think this is where we're starting to see some of that. There's like this imperial conquest narrative which is being put forward where those who go out, who engage in these colonization efforts are literally preferred. They are higher in the hierarchy. So the commentary here says that according to one account, Abbas, the prophet's uncle.
This could be. Hold on. So in verse 20, there, it's interesting. So the way it's translated here is migrated, but the way it's translated by Muhammad Ali is those who believed and fled and strove hard. So remember, so jihad just means struggle, from my understanding. But
that's hard to struggle. Oof.
But it looks like
emigrate in both of these.
That's interesting because those all have very different connotations, right?
If you could pull up 925, you'll have to reference the table of contents.
Right, because it's.
I'm gonna read the.
Because it seems like okay, so from the translations that or that translation, Muhammad Ali's one, and I'll look at what was that in verse 20. Mm-hmm. Those who believe and suffer exile and strive with might.
Suffer exile.
Yeah. So Abdullah Yusuf Ali translates it and suffer exile. So this would be not just like you choose to go somewhere else, but you would have to like people who are persecuted for this and then have to go live somewhere else.
Okay.
So the
that makes it quite different.
What was the translation yours again?
Emigrate.
Okay. So that makes it a bit.
Check what it is in the Penguin Classics one. The table of contents. Let's see. Yeah, it's a pain.
Okay.
But
Jesus, this sucks actually.
Yeah, I know. That's why I never open it. Thanks
oh my God,
Penguin.
Actually, I don't even want to look through this. Oh my God, that's atrocious.
It is. I'm going to give this commentary. According to one account, Abbas, the prophet's uncle, was speaking to Ali and proclaiming his own merit for being responsible for giving drink to pilgrims, which was considered an honor and privilege. He was rebuked by Ali, who noted that he himself had fought for Islam since the beginning and that Abbas had only lately begun to perform the canonical prayer. In another account, some Muslims were discussing among themselves what actions were best. Some mentioned giving drink to pilgrims, others the maintenance of the Kaaba, others struggling physically in the way of God. They were chastised by Umar ibn al-Khattab for raising their voices near the Prophet's pulpit, and soon after this verse is said to have been revealed. Al-Qurtubi notes that it's plausible the latter account was an instance where a previously revealed verse was mentioned as a response to some incident, not that it was revealed in response. That the idolaters are bearing witness of disbelief against themselves means they provide evidence against themselves through their disbelief. The possibility that deeds of disbelievers may in the hereafter come to naught is mentioned throughout the Quran. Now, it says in verse 18...
only he can maintain the mosques of Allah who believes in Allah and the last day and keeps up the prayer and pays the poor rate and fears none but Allah.
Such as these may be among the rightly guided.
Yes.
May be renders asa,
Okay.
which is interpreted to mean when it appears in the Quran,
Those are the ones that have the ability to be, I'm guessing?
it will necessarily be so.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So maybe means it will be here. Striving in the way of God with one's wealth and oneself is also mentioned in verse 44 and 81 of this surah.
Yeah, because when it says in the context of if they are fleeing something, then the additional weight of with their wealth and their lives would be more like with the few things that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess that is different than the imperialist take.
Yeah.
But if you use the emigrate translation,
right, it takes out a lot of that context.
And I want to point out that the introductions here did say that it encourages this kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Well,
it was clear from that they were pissed off, right? That part's clear.
So I've got a couple. I've just got basically a note when you get done with verse 22.
Okay, sounds good. So verse 21 here. Their Lord gives them the good news of his mercy and his pleasure, and for them there will be gardens with lasting bliss to remain in them forever. With God indeed is a great reward. Mm-hmm. That was verse 22.
Yeah. Contentment, Ridwan, from God is considered to be the pinnacle of the paradisal state. Bliss renders na'im, a word that evokes tranquility.
And we talked about garden being
blessing.
like the word for heaven too.
Yeah.
They always reference that.
Yeah, there are verses that speak of gardens of bliss.
Right, yeah.
And then I'll have more commentary when you get done with verse 24.
Okay. So verse 23. Oh ye. So oh ye. I said oh ye. No, it says oh you.
Oh ye.
Yeah, oh you who have faith. Do
really
not
getting into the pirate role already.
Yeah.
Do not befriend your fathers and brothers if they prefer unfaith to faith. Those of you who befriend them, it is they who are the wrongdoers.
Okay, this is interesting. Take not your fathers and your brothers as protectors if they prefer disbelief to belief. So that's inclusive of family.
Well, it necessarily, yes.
Yes.
So like these, people who, I guess the idea is that people who would usually be able to look over you, like fathers and uncles.
Does that suggest you shouldn't sleep under their roof? You shouldn't live with them? Because you shouldn't take them as protectors? So you shouldn't rely on them?
I suppose.
Wow.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm currently checking the commentaries that I have, and there seems to be no notes on that.
It's thought by some commentators that these verses... did you get to the end of 24?
No.
Okay. Well, continue.
Okay.
Then.
That's a good idea. Say, if your fathers and your sons, your brethren, your spouses, and your kinsfolk, the possessions that you have acquired, the business you fear may suffer, and the dwellings you are fond of, are dearer to you than God and his apostle, and to waging jihad in his way, then wait until God issues his edict, and God does not guide the transgressing lot. There is an actual note on this here. He says that, so as Spire notes, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, Spire notes, this verse is close to Matthew 10:37. No one who prefers his father or mother to me is worthy. Okay, that actually now makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That you should always be picking God in these contexts, in any context, really.
Yeah, but
it also does step it up a notch.
Yeah,
too.
it does, because it's not like saying that you prefer these people over God. It's saying that if they don't believe, if they prefer disbelief to belief.
Although I'll have to check.
then-
I'll have to check the Greek for. I don't have a Greek New Testament on me, but I have to check the Greek for that verse in Matthew, because sometimes it's translated as hate, right? If you do not hate them. So I need to actually check the Greek to know what it really says.
Okay. You do so, because you'll have to do so.
Yeah. I will.
So it's thought by some commentators that these verses refer to those Muslims who remained in Mecca after the Hijrah.
Oh.
And before the conquest of Mecca. But others prefer to see these verses as a general command, applicable to all believers. It's reported that when the command to migrate came, some of the believers were persuaded by their families to remain in Mecca. Verse 25 mentions the Battle of Hunayn, which...
Wait, hold on. Is that an Omega? Is that, I think that's from my, or is that, I can barely see from here. But the verse is Matthew 10:37. I can also read Attic. New Testament's in Koine, but it's not all that different. I was gonna check it later because I'm writing I'm doing a translation and commentary of Matthew anyways. So I was gonna check it later. But yeah.
It's reported that when the command to migrate, that verse 25 mentions the Battle of Hunayn, which took place after the conquest of Mecca, may suggest that these verses were not in fact revealed in relation to those who were in Mecca before the conquest, but constitute a general moral injunction. Till God comes with his command is understood by some to refer to the eventual conquest of Mecca by the believers. Though the fact that verse 25 addresses the Battle of Hunayn, which took place after the conquest of Mecca, in the past tense.
It would be loving more than. It would be loving more than.
It makes it
prefer, yeah.
Okay. It makes it implausible that verse 24 could be referring to a time before the conquest of Mecca. The idea of God coming with his command also appears in Surah 2, verse 109, which I'm just going to pull up, and while I do, it says here in verse 109, many of the people of the book wish to turn you back into disbelievers after your having believed, out of envy in their souls, even after the truth has become clear to them. So pardon and forbear until God comes with his command. Truly, God is powerful over all things, which I think we would interpret almost as like a more end times like judgment motif.
Yeah, issuing his edict. Yeah, that sounds very end timesy. So I would say that there were those I forget which surah it was, but there was the sections that were like, oh, it's okay to leave the faith once and then come back and you're okay. Mm-hmm. You're still fine.
But
it's
if
not
you
a
do it
big
again.
Deal. Yeah, that part's not good. And that one actually, there are differences as what to do with those people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but either way, it's not like nice. But if you leave the faith once and come back, you're still okay.
Yeah,
you're still okay.
So we're about to have a direct reference to the Battle of Hunayn.
Right. Okay. Great.
So why don't you proceed with verse 25?
All right. God has already helped you in many situations, and on the day of Hunayn, when your great number impressed you. Yeah, when your great number impressed you, but it did not avail you in any way, and the earth became narrow for you in spite of its expanse, whereupon you turned your backs to flee.
So the Battle of Hunayn took place soon after the conquest of Mecca. The tribes of Hawazin and Thaqif, centered around the town of Taif to the southeast of Mecca, had gathered their own forces in response to the Prophet's march from Medina in fear that they were the true target of his army, rather than the Quraysh. It was indeed reported that Abu Sufyan, in a vain attempt to persuade the Prophet not to march on Mecca after the breach of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, suggested that he march against the Hawazin instead, arguing that they were further in kinship and more hostile. The Prophet, for his part, intentionally created ambiguity as to his actual target. Following the conquest of Mecca by the Prophet, the Hawazin decided not to wait for a potential attack and set out to strike at Mecca. In response, the Prophet marched northeast from Mecca toward the valley of Autas, where the Hawazin had mustered their large army of some 20,000 men. The army of the Prophet consisted of the Medinan and Meccan Muslims, and also some Quraysh who had not yet embraced Islam, but nevertheless did not wish their city to fall to the Hawazin. The battle was joined in the valley of Hunayn, which was on the road between Mecca and Taif. The early stages of the battle went in the Hawazin's favor, and segments of the Meccan army fled upon the powerful initial onslaught. But ultimately, the Prophet and his commanders rallied and regrouped and dealt the Hawazin a decisive defeat. Some of them scattered, while others retreated within the walls of Taif. The Prophet's army laid siege to the town for nearly 3 weeks until they surrendered and agreed to embrace Islam.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It looks like, since there were idolaters in their ranks, that's why they weren't winning. That's why they ended up turning away, even though they had apparently a shit ton of people. This strikes me as very similar to the ideology we get in a lot of the Old Testament, where the reasoning that they give for being exiled, right? Because they have to justify their own exile in some way. Mm-hmm. They are like, oh, well, you know what? It's because we still had people, worshiping other deities, not worshiping Yahweh alone. Mm-hmm. So they reasoned, now we got to totally go into this Yahweh alone movement. Mm-hmm. And that was the reason that they gave for, they blamed it on themselves, right? So that was the reasoning they gave. It strikes me as very similar to that. Not quite the same, but similar. And I think, I think I'll go on to verse 26. Then God sent down his composure upon his apostle and upon the faithful, and he sent down hosts you did not see, and he punished the faithless, and that is the requital of the faithless.
The hosts you did not see is understood to refer to angels. The commentators record accounts of members of the enemy army long after the battle, saying that before and during the battle, they encountered men with white faces that struck terror in their hearts. As discussed...
I'd be scared if I saw white people, too.
Yeah, apparently.
Although I think that... Sorry, did you say that your commentary said it was understood to be an angel or wasn't?
Yeah.
It was. Okay. That makes sense. This also, I could even see this as, even if it's an angel, I could still see this as representative of an actual force, because sometimes, in biblical literature at least, you get the idea that an actual physical invading army has divine beings on their side. Mm-hmm. So I could totally see it being the case that whatever, would wipe these people out, this enemy army would have been understood as, basically God giving them the judgment that they deserve, right? And that also happened in the Old Testament, right? Because even though the Babylonians were literally seen as an arm of God sent to exile them, God was mad at them for doing it. It's bro, you just sent them. What do you mean?
Right.
Yeah, that is, if you read the Old Testament, that's the vibe you kind of get.
I think that, Like, the point is not that it's good, but that he's
He's showing
in
that
the
you
Old
get
Testament.
a reward if you're faithful.
Well, no, but it's because they have a covenantal theological system. And so he has an agreement with the descendants of Abraham. And, like, that doesn't mean he can't, like, cause harm to them, right? But, like, he has to then do something in recompense on their behalf, right? Which is why there's, like, this anti-Nebuchadnezzar while also being pro-Nebuchadnezzar nonsense.
Right, yeah.
Anyways, why don't you continue?
All right. So I just read 26, yeah. Then God will turn clemently after that to whomever he wishes. God is indeed all forgiving, all merciful. O you who have faith, the polytheists are indeed unclean. So let them not approach the holy mosque after this year. Should you fear poverty, God will enrich you out of his bounty if he wishes. God is indeed all-knowing, all-wise.
Unclean renders najas, a term usually understood in Islamic law to refer to ritual impurity that would prevent one, for example, from touching a physical copy of the Quran or performing a prayer. The idolaters are surely unclean, as literally the idolaters are in uncleanliness.
Dude, this is I mean, yeah, there's plenty of reasons given among many religions as to why things are unclean, right? Whether it be for worship or for sacrifice or whatever.
But it means literally the idolaters are in uncleanliness, which commentators understand to mean characterized by uncleanliness. For some,
but yeah, both literally and metaphorically, because Muslims are enjoined to be strict in ablutions and physical cleanliness, as well as in purity of mind and in heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be in both contexts. Although there's a funny comment, I think, from Maulana Muhammad Ali. He says that they were unclean because they indulged in evil practices and went naked around the Kaaba.
Okay. Interesting. You know, there were similar accusations of idolaters in the Old Testament, I think.
About them being naked all the time?
Sexual impurity.
Oh, sexual impurity, sure. Yeah.
Like,
I was like, I don't remember them being naked all the time. Yeah. There was like the thing about David dancing, and where he was like, you know, you could see his junk. But either way, while you look into that, I suppose I'll go with verse 29. And it does look like there's some commentary here. Fight those from among those who were given the book who do not have faith in God nor believe in the last day, nor forbid what God and his apostle have forbidden, nor practice the true religion until they pay the tribute out of hand degraded. There are a few things that go along with this.
the tribute?
I mean, it says, pay the tribute.
The jizya.
Yeah, the jizya, yeah.
The jizya, which is a special tax which is imposed upon people who are lesser. Literally a lower caste, basically.
Yeah, the root meaning is compensation. The derived meaning, which became the technical meaning, was a poll tax levied from those who did not accept Islam but were willing to live under the protection of Islam.
Right,
and were thus tacitly willing to submit to the ideals being enforced in the Muslim state, saving only their personal liberty of conscience as regarded themselves.
And these people would be dhimmis, and it's wild if you research how dhimmis have been treated throughout history and these different it's just okay to spit on them. It's just okay to throw rocks at them. That's all cool. Awful stuff. We're getting no data. Oh, now we're getting data.
Yeah, it seems like we're okay.
Soft.
Yeah, it seems like...
Is it censoring us talking about dhimmis?
Maybe it's because you said jizya, and that sounds like jizz. Is that why?
Well, now we're really fucked.
Yeah, now we're fucked.
Fuck.
But yeah, it looked like we were lagging for a bit. Are we Are we okay?
You dropped a frame like right then and there, and
Okay.
then it stopped. I looked.
No, it's all right. Okay.
We're back.
Okay.
So luckily it wasn't that long. So, I did have a couple notes on this. So this verse is generally understood in light of its reference to those who are given the book to legislate how Muslims are to deal with Jewish and Christian communities. Yet Jews and Christians, by definition, believe in God, and for the most part, in the last day. True. Moreover, it is not clear how this verse could establish conditions under which Muslims are to wage war against Jews and Christians. And then in parentheses, how indeed could Muslims fight against only those Jews and Christians who don't believe in God and leave the rest alone? Yeah. So yeah, it is true. Yeah, specifically about the people of the book. And I think I had another note here. No, that one's basically covered in the last comment that I gave here on the jizya.
So why don't you continue on? There's only a couple more verses here for you to read. Yep.
Oh yeah, I can see how I kind of fucked up the numbering. Whatever,
Yes,
it's fine.
did.
Yeah, it's fine. Everything's okay.
It's not okay. We're never gonna recover.
It's over.
Yep.
This one's really interesting. Mm-hmm. The Jews say Ezra is the son of God.
What?
I've never heard any Jew say that.
It's said that Ezra is the son of God was the opinion of one Jew, a certain Phinehas ibn Azura, or that it was the belief of some Jews at one time, but this belief eventually disappeared. The name rendered is Uzair, and it's understood to be Ezra. However, well, okay, I'll get into it in a bit. But yeah, I'm going to finish the verse at least. Yeah.
So the Jews say Ezra is God, and the Christians say Christ is the Son of God. Or sorry. They say Ezra is the Son of God, and Christians say Christ is the Son of God. That is an opinion that they mouth, imitating the opinions of the faithless of former times. May God assail them. Where do they stray?
How they are perverted.
Right, yeah.
Which...
There's quite a bit on this.
Yeah, so as to why the Christians consider Jesus the Son of God, Al-Razi, for example, speculates they may have called him son by way of honor, the way Abraham is called God's friend, and that because of various sectarian conflicts, they may have taken this idea to an extreme. On the question of... Well, I don't think that's a fully accurate summation of the history of Christology. But okay.
Well, you remember this is coming in around the year 600, right? So we've had plenty of councils already, and even then, that's still one tradition. Those other ones didn't completely go away overnight. I mean, hell, you have like even Marcionite churches lasting until the 10th century.
Continue.
Yeah, but I did have quite a bit on this.
Yes.
So obviously it says here is that the name, I already noted the name, but he also says that, however, Jews do not consider Ezra son of God in any way parallel to the way Christians consider Christ the Son of God. And indeed, Ezra is far from the most important personality in Jewish teaching. To explain the place of Ezra in this verse, scholars sometimes refer to the Talmud. According to one opinion cited therein, had Moses not preceded him, Ezra would have been worthy of receiving the Torah for Israel. That says he's pretty great, but not as the son of God. Like Moses is not even called the son of God. No. But anyways,
Ezekiel's the son of man.
Sure, that's different. That means human. So
did he mix up Ezra and Ezekiel, and did he mix up Son of God and Son of Man?
That would be quite a bit of mess ups.
But he is coming from an oral tradition.
That is also true, because he did not have these texts in front of him. Sorry. Others refer to the apocryphal work Fourth Ezra or Second Esdras, which has God refer to the Messiah as my son. It is possible that the Quran does not mean Ezra with Uzair. Both Hamidullah and Paret leave Uzair untranslated. One possibility is that Uzair is the name of an angel. The Book of the Watchers accuses an angel named Azazel or Azael of teaching impious things to humans. It is possible that the Quran is accusing the Jews of having recourse to this evil angel, the name of which was amended from something like Azael to Arabic Uzair.
Look, if you want to be
maybe, but
if you want to be accurate, like sons of God are just people, right?
Okay, so
Ye
son
are
of God.
sons of God,
Sure.
right?
The issue, I think, when it comes to Son of God is that is a changing title. And the reason it changes is because we also have to look at the context of these things. So, like, during the Roman Empire, Son of God would have been a reference to the fucking emperor.
Right.
In other places, referring to someone as a son of God. There was a king who was said to be the son of 6 gods in Egypt. So it definitely gives that divine, God, what's the word I'm looking for? The like divinely elected status to somebody, calling someone a son of God.
Now, during the period of the Roman Empire, which is when people would be referring to Jesus as the Son of God initially.
Sure, yeah.
That would be quite the claim, because you're basically making a political statement.
Yes, you are.
That you are opposed
Yes,
to the
you are.
emperor. Yeah.
Although, while people like Ezra definitely had a high status, they're like one of the earliest ideas, even, this was accepted by scholars for quite a while, was that Ezra had actually, written the, was that he wrote, or no, that he compiled the Torah.
Yeah.
That was it. So he definitely had like a high status, right? And, when it came to, I mean, there were plenty of people with a higher status in these traditions, right? Like Ezra is, while an important figure, is nowhere near, I would say, as important as someone like a Jeremiah or Ezekiel.
The next verse is going to also have some pretty absurd statement. Why don't you continue with 31?
Okay. 31 it is, I guess. I guess I covered as much as I could with this, at least with what I have on hand. So verse 31. They have taken their scribes and their monks as lords beside God and also Christ, Mary's son, though they were commanded to worship only the one God. There is no God except him. He is far too immaculate to have any partners that they ascribe to him.
So according to one well-known hadith, a companion who was once Christian, upon hearing this verse, told the prophet that Christians did not worship their religious authorities. The prophet replied, "Did they not forbid what God permitted, whereupon you consider it forbidden? And did they not permit what God forbade, whereupon you consider it permissible?" He responded, "Yes." The prophet then said, "That is the worship offered to them." This verse is noteworthy in seeing a possible conflict between excessive obedience to certain religious authorities and the sincere worship of one God. Okay.
I mean, there is, at least at this point, especially at this point, actually, in Judaism, you would have a lot of reverence for the rabbis and for the Talmudic, Midrashic figures, right? So you would have a lot of respect for them. And you can kind of see how a lot of the traditions that have been handed down have basically stemmed from those figures. Mm-hmm. So I can see the criticism that they're going for. They do not worship them as gods or anywhere near God himself, but they do treat them in a very interesting way, right? Because they have holy days for saints. They even have some they have what are they called? There is I forget the name of it. They were hagiographies, right, where especially saints are elevated to this extreme degree. They have their patron saints, right? So there is, I can see the criticism that they're going for. They're misrepresenting them, and how they interact with, how the Christians and Jews interact with those important figures. But I can see the criticism that they're going for, that they concentrate too much on humans instead of God.
Yeah.
I can see what they're going for.
Yeah. Why don't you read the last verse of the day? And
We'll do.
Yeah.
They desire to put out the light of God with their mouths, but God is intent on perfecting his light, though the faithless should be adverse.
Yeah. That's basically they don't believe in God.
Yeah. This one's pretty clear.
Yeah. So that's the reading for today. Everybody, you see who won?
That one.
Yep.
That one won. Although I was surprised actually with today's turnout. We got a lot of Muslims in the chat today.
We did.
Yeah, which is very interesting.
Yeah, we need more Muslims.
We need more people in chat in general, right? Mm-hmm. But an interesting turnout. Although I was also surprised by the people that said we should read commentaries, because they clearly weren't here for the very beginning of the show where we listed all the commentaries and translations that we have. Either way, I'm glad
reading from commentaries throughout the show.
Yeah, I'm glad that people joined in though.
Now, if they mean like we should have hadith commentaries, but
oh boy, that's another can of worms.
That's another can of worms. First of all, we don't know what exactly is graded.
There's one hadith that is universally accepted no matter who you are, and then I think the other ones are they're a bit more debatable. I think I forget the name of that one, but I know for a fact that there is one that is this is authoritative, straight up.
I don't really appreciate the hadiths as a form of literature. It's very much he said, she said.
Sure, yeah. There's a reason we didn't have the Talmud for when we were reading the Bible.
Now the Talmud we would have to get into that separately,
right?
Probably with commentaries on the Talmud,
right? Yeah.
But we did have Talmudic stuff come up in commentaries.
Sure, yeah, stuff popped up, yeah. But if you're just looking at because stuff like the Talmud or the Hadith, they're written through one particular lens. Mm-hmm. So we have here both secular scholarship, but also the religious side. So we actually tried to have a bit more of a nuanced view on these things.
It'd be nice if we had someone who knows Arabic.
Yeah, that would be nice. I think there was a guy in their Discord who didn't know Arabic who wanted to do this.
Oh man, we need to make it happen. Everybody, make it happen. Find that guy. If you're not in the Discord,
or that guy,
everyone, go into the Discord.
Yeah, that's
we live
link
there.
The link to that is in the description.
We're always there.
You could do actually. I don't think it's actually working today, is it?
If it's 1 a.m. and you at Lawrence.
I might be up. Yeah, I'll probably be up. I am usually up at 1 a.m. Usually until 3. That's just how I am. But either way, link is definitely in the description for the Discord. It looks like Nightbot isn't working. Thank you, Ryan, for checking that.
Yeah.
Well, link is definitely in the description.
Hey, you see Ryan's beautiful golden calf?
Look at that. Hey, by the way, before we totally get out of here, we have badges. Can you pull up the badges, Chris?
No.
So Ryan has a golden calf. It looks amazing. It's the best calf I've ever seen. So if you are a member of any rank, I guess, you get access to these badges. And I think these look cool as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got to show your loyalty by maintaining your membership over long periods of time to get to the higher levels.
There it is. There it is.
Excellent.
30 months. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Months.
Huge. Huge.
Holy cow.
Absolutely massive.
Yeah, Bukhari, that's it. That's right,
you are
Bukhari.
Really the closest anyone's ever gotten to the ascended calf.
Yeah, well, you'll get there. You'll get to the ascended calf. That's huge.
Yeah. the Metatron calf.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Thanks
check out our T-shirts and shit.
Yeah, I got T-shirts, got a Patreon, got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and
We'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday.
See ya. Have a good one. You all look great.
Bye.